This is home, Ghana, otherwise known as Kainai, or the Blood Reserve. Nestled in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, Kainai is the largest reserve in Canada. Beginning in 2014, fentanyl flooded the illicit drug trade on the reserve. This new reality has forced our community to approach addiction in radically different ways.
It's like you can name the statistics, you can name all of the ways that the treaties have been broken, and all of the ways that settler colonialism violently affects us every day. But it's like people just kind of dissociate from it. People are desensitized,
Right.
and so ultimately, I wanted to humanize these stories, especially with the opioid crisis is something or the drug poisoning crisis is now impacting people across the country, and so the issue of harm reduction and the issue of just treating drug and alcohol users with dignity and respect it's a really common conversation across the country. And so I wanted to be able to humanize the people who are impacted the most, which is the people who are drug users themselves, and then also their family members and loved ones. And so often with my community in particular, there was this I guess just so many problematic representations of my community that were presented through a lens of tragedy and trauma, and presenting our people as though we're constantly in a place of deficit, which is true on some levels, but I wanted to be able to present the public with a portrait that wasn't that was a portrait of the community that I know and love. And so I wanted to honor the strength and the dignity of my people, and to do so with love and compassion and respect, which are some of our core teachings. And that's how we've survived genocide. That's how we've gotten to where we are, is through those core principles of who we are as Blackfoot people. And so I wanted settlers to be able to see this film and understand that there are so many people within my community who are working so hard for solutions with very few resources, but also to recognize that our people are so capable of doing this work on our own, and we have been doing this work on our own for a very long time. But further to that, as a community member, I just am so immensely proud of where I come from and the people that I come from, and I love my community more than anything. And so I wanted to be able to give my community the gift of honoring who we are as a people, and documenting this really important moment that I think is going to really help change the dialogue around addiction or substance use disorder and Indigenous people in this country, because it's a very, very complicated and often divisive topic within our communities. And I certainly hope that in providing a story that's rooted in love and respect for our people, that we're able to at least push the conversation a little bit further. How do I tell stories in ways that don't replicate these commonly accepted extractive forms of filmmaking and storytelling? My film is a co-production with the National Film Board, and one of the reasons I decided to make it a co-production and become the majority co-producer was because I wanted to care for my community's stories. If it's a full NFB production, it means that institution essentially owns those stories. All of them go into the archives at the NFB, and that is really troubling for me as somebody who has documented, I think at least 100 people participated in this film in front of the camera at some point. And so there's like 150 hours of footage from my community, of stories that don't necessarily belong to me. Like, just because I'm from that community, just because I'm the filmmaker, doesn't mean that I own the rights to those stories. And so it was something I had to really carefully consider, like what does it mean to work with this large institution that's government funded, and then ultimately have those stories be owned by the institution. And I think that's something that most Indigenous filmmakers are consistently having to navigate, is like, how do we engage in relationships with Canadian institutions in a way that doesn't allow them to continue to like consume and control our stories. And so, yeah, it's I haven't figured it out necessarily, but it's very much a part of my process, just trying to navigate how to tell stories in an ethical way, and how to first and foremost be accountable to my own community, because I don't get to just walk away at the end of the day.
History marks the Bloods as some of the fiercest, strongest people there ever was. And I want us to get to that point again. I'm happy for you.
We have a Blackfoot word that's called Kímmapiiyipitssini, which means giving kindness to each other.
Thank you.
And that means also compassion for those who are suffering.
It's an amazing thing that they've done. And in my eyes, they're heroes.